Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. I am one of your hosts, Holly, and today I'm joined with Wayne Noel. He is a breathwork facilitator, sound healer, somatic coach, and I'm going to let him explain more what he does in a bit. But I met Wayne through my husband, Eric. So Eric and Wayne are in a men's group together where they do really beautiful healing work together. And I've gone to a couple of Wayne's sound healing circles that he's hosted in San Francisco. And they're so beautiful, so powerful. And I feel like this is going to be a really beneficial episode. We're going to be talking about healing through the body, how to get comfortable being your true authentic self and listening to your intuition, healing through touch, and so much more. So I'm so excited to get into it today. With that, Wayne, if you want to introduce yourself and give like a short description of the work that you do, we would love to hear.
Let's see. So a question a lot of people have asked me over the years is, how did I get into what I do? I'd say it for me, it started out, it was two things. One, a lot of people told me that I was really good at listening and I was really good at touch. So I got a massage license about 20 something years ago. And I found quickly that that wasn't really very fulfilling for me. So I kind of put that on the back burner as like sort of just something that I knew how to do. Mm-hmm. And I started focusing more on DJing full time. And a few years later, I graduated from college and I tried working in the film industry, but I was pulled more towards music. So I went back to DJing and starting my own event company called Golden State Productions, which I sold a while back. But so that 20 years was like full-time DJing, 50 events a year. And I'd say about 15 years ago, I started realizing that I didn't want to do that full-time. And I started doing more of body work, not really massage, but more body work that helped people let go of stuck energy, stuck tension in their body. And I went to my first seminar with a man named John Barnes, who teaches a form of myofascial release, which was the original one that coined that term. And I was expecting something that was like physical therapy type training. But within the first 2 days of the class, everybody that had been to it before started shaking and crying. And the shaking is something that they call unwinding. And I was pretty kind of surprised by what was happening, and kind of, I think I was triggered because when I was a kid and I would visit my father in Ohio, rarely, but I did visit him a few times, they'd leave me alone and all the TV would have on it was evangelical Christian TV shows. And in those shows, there would be usually a man, and he'd put his hand on someone's head and say, like, by the power of Jesus Christ, our Savior, our Lord, I now pronounce you healed. And the person would start shaking and convulsing all over the floor. And it just felt very performative and fake to me. So when I went to my first training in this myofascial release and everybody was doing that, something very similar, I thought they were all performing and wanting attention. And I was judging. But then within 2 more days, by the 4th day of this 10-day seminar, someone was working on me. I was receiving while we were practicing. And totally out of the blue, I started crying. And then John Barnes came over and he's like, that's good, Wayne. Just let that out. Try not to hold it in. And I said, but it feels like other stuff wants to come out. He's like, that's okay. Just let it happen. And so I kind of, in a way, I think I turned my mind off and I just gave my body permission to start letting go of whatever it needed to let go of. And the tears were just the tip of the iceberg. My whole body started shaking. I started to cough, almost like dry heaving when you want to throw up or something. Mm-hmm. And I kept saying, like, what's happening? Is this okay? And the person working with me and John kept saying, yes, you're fine. And eventually he had to teach again the next technique, but I couldn't stop. It's like I had turned it on and allowed it to come out. And it was like, no, we're not going to stop for a while. So they brought me out into the foyer of this hotel where they were teaching. And I was by myself for another hour and a half, just shaking, crying, like purging.
Yeah, releasing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, I realized, oh, wow, those people in my seminar here weren't faking it.
Mhm.
And I have no idea if the people on the evangelical Christian TV shows were faking it, but I knew for certain that the people in the seminar were not. And that's when I realized, oh, wow, all this mental talk therapy that I've been doing for years that never really seemed to get me anywhere. I
Mhm.
understood the missing piece, which was the body.
Right. Yeah.
And it's almost like the body was like the gateway, or I needed to open the gate with permission from my mind to just let go
Hmm.
and not explain it intellectually, just let go of it physically. So that was like, I don't know, 14 years ago. And then it began this like sort of trading of like the DJing, the music performing to be more part-time, and the healing work that I did to become more full-time. And then
Hmm.
when COVID happened with the quarantine, I had several events contracted, but then they all got canceled because of quarantine, and everyone wanted their deposits back. And it was like really difficult for me financially. And I just made the choice to let go of that as a career
Hmm.
and focus more on the healing work. And I started to miss the music. And I had been doing meditational sound healing for a long time before that. But what I had started to miss about 5 years ago was DJing and producing music live with electronic samples and drum beats. And so, around the first year of COVID, I started to put on these events where I incorporated the meditational sound healings that I've been doing for a long time with big crystal singing bowls and gongs as like opening and closing for dancing. And the dancing was similar to like ecstatic dance or five rhythms.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say with the dancing, there's so much healing that happens from dancing too. So bringing in your DJing, like ecstatic dancing, it's like getting back in your body. So
yes.
there's like it can really those two worlds of DJing and healing can really come together simultaneously to create something really beautiful. So I'm glad you moved back towards that a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yes. I hope I wasn't going on too long.
No, not at all. I just wanted to put that in there because I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, dancing is it being in your body, getting back in your body, and music is such a powerful way to do that.
Yeah,
Music healing too. Yeah.
yeah. Music, dance, breath, body work, touch. It's all what I find is they're just tools. And these days I could be doing a group event with people. I could be doing a private event with people. I could be doing a private session with one or two people. No session is ever the same because one person will come to see me, and what they're needing in order to feel more freedom and like they're lighter and letting go of stuff that's been holding them back, what that person might need is totally different from another person. And
Mhm.
I tried to come from you know, a linear top down list of protocols to, ask them this question, touch them this way. And I found that it just it worked for some people, but not everyone. And when someone finds me, it's usually because there's something that I have to offer that they can benefit from. And I get there much quicker when I just follow my intuition.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yep.
gonna say. It's like intuitive, like it's gonna be no one person is the same. So listening to your intuition when it comes to that specific need or healing for another person, like because I think the mind, we get so caught up in the mind of wanting to be right and make sure we're doing everything okay. But it's like when you can tune into your intuition and give that person exactly what they need by following your intuition, it's like so much more powerful than trying to just do it one way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it sounds like how you work too.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like just with all of my clients that I come in contact with, like no one person is the same. So like we have a specific structure of like the program that I go through, but I take my clients through embodiment practices, inner child practices, which is solely led by my intuition and their intuition to help whatever they need to see, whatever is most present, whatever they need to move through. It's different person by person. No one session is ever the same.
Yeah.
Each of us are so different. We all, I feel, struggle with similar things, but in different ways based off of our own life experiences.
Yeah, which puts like a different code required to type into the keypad in order to unlock it. It's like, yeah. And for some reason, something you were saying reminded me of a few of my friends coined this term during COVID. They called it the Great Betrayal. And they were referring to psychologists and therapists that went fully remote. And after quarantine ended, they stayed remote. And so they created this distance between themselves and people. And it's like there's still effectiveness in therapy when you're doing it remotely. But there's something that happens when you're in the same physical space as another human being, where your bodies feed off of each other's energy. And the lack of that in talk therapy over the past few years has really created a deep, deep, deep need for people that are willing to not just do body work or physical therapy, but who are also willing to have dialogue with the people. So the people, because some people open up through conversation before they can let go.
Right.
And if you're separating the mind and the body with mind therapy, with a talk therapist, and then a body worker, and you're thinking that you have to keep them separate, unless the talk therapist and the body worker are actually communicating and working together with the permission of the person that we're talking about, which I do sometimes with talk therapists. But unless that's happening, you're really kind of missing the point. And so that's when I started taking a lot of classes. Actually, way before COVID, I was taking classes on trauma-informed therapy, like Hakomi method and stuff. But after COVID quarantine happened, and I found so many more people just like losing their minds, like feeling like really frustrated and stressed out. And I personally could find a correlation between all of that common ground experience with many different people and the change in the way therapy started taking place and it being fully remote. So that's when I started to incorporate more somatic coaching into my work and making an even bigger combination of dialogue and physical touch and sound healing. And it's just the gravity of the work has just gone up a whole level, like when I started doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes so much sense because I always say you can't talk yourself out of trauma. The mind cannot solve the mind's problems. You cannot talk your way out of a feeling. You have to feel it through the body. And I really feel talk therapy is amazing and it really has its time and place. It does have its time and place, I feel, for people to really work through things that they're navigating, to create a deeper understanding, to create a way forward. But you can be going to therapy for 10 years and be still dealing with the same problem if you're not allowing yourself to feel your emotions and get back in your body and release your trauma and your emotions through your body, because the body keeps the score. Even that book, Body Keeps the Score, it's like your body remembers painful experiences, trauma, and you cannot talk your way out of it. So even with sound healing, breath work, helping move that energy through, helping you release the stored emotions that are stuck in your body, that's something that you cannot talk out. It has to be felt. It has to be felt. And I think that's where we're kind of getting, where talk therapy, then we need to also include these other holistic healing tools to help people not only talk it out, but feel it out. We have to feel it out too, in order to fully release it and feel and heal, to fully make change. So you integrating all of those is really powerful. And you're seeing the powerful effects with like the clients that you work with, I'm sure. So it's all so necessary and needed. And yeah, really getting back in your body and feeling what you need to feel and releasing what you need to release, because there's so much that gets stuck in our bodies, like so many emotions just get stuck and it creates blockages for us.
Yeah.
So and not even needing to get behind this story of like, for you, when you were crying at your and releasing and shaking at the one event that you went to that you talked about prior. It's like you don't even need to go into the story of what you were releasing. It's like just letting your body fully surrender and release, and not needing to get caught up in the mind of, okay, I'm crying because of this experience that I had, or I'm shaking because I need to release this. It's like, no, just letting your body lead without questioning, without judgment, just fully surrendering and letting your body, because our bodies can heal themselves. They
Yeah.
know what they're doing. They're much more evolved than we know. They know how to heal themselves, but the mind kind of can get in the way of that. So I feel like what you do with incorporating and, even like incorporating embodiment practices and sound healing and energy work and touch, it's like that there's no talking. Like it doesn't need to be talking. It just needs to be felt. And there's so much power in that. So, and you're seeing it, I see it in the work that I do too. And it's really, really powerful. So I love that you have incorporated all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, and even when you said there's no talking, I feel like there's quite a bit of talking with me, but it's different talking, you know? It's somatic talking. It's talking about the connection between the mind and the body, which is not story, like you were saying. It's letting go of the story. And honestly, the story is the gateway into victimhood, which is very, I wouldn't say popular right now, but it's like there's a lot of victimization going on in psychology right now, where people spend year after year talking to a therapist about why they were victimized or why they are a victim, and it becomes their identity. And when you experience release on a physical level or a somatic level, where your mind is choosing in that moment to let go, basically taking the brakes off the body. If the body was like a car with brakes, your mind is the brake, and you just choose in that moment to take your foot off the brake. And the body just lets go without this constant reinforcement of needing to retrace the storyline and almost be affirmed by the talking in the therapy. And when you don't need to have your story be affirmed, and you don't need to sort of stew in the victimization of your past, you're just letting go and moving forward. And I myself went through decades of talk therapy because I went through some pretty rough stuff as a young person. And it was that one seminar I told you about where I realized that so much more is possible. And, it brings up something that's really interesting. I'm sure you're really aware of like a movement in psychotherapy there's this new specialization over the past decade, which is called somatic therapy. And
is it similar to EMDR therapy?
No, EMDR is more of a trauma-based therapy, which is, it depends. Some therapists go like this and have the person follow their fingers, but other therapists have their patients hold like a vibrating device in each hand.
Yeah, because I know kind of like not getting caught up in the story. It's kind of like being more in your body, which I feel like is really powerful. So I didn't know if there was a correlation between that and the somatic. Yeah.
EMDR more bypasses the need to like process what's coming up, and just how it's a more rapid processing of potential traumatic experiences that someone's felt or experienced. Because when it really starts to come online, let's say they've got these alternating vibration devices in their hands, and all of a sudden it's kind of like, in the old days where they had those projector screens where the projector would play a bunch of pictures, but really fast, and it looked like a moving picture. So imagine like you and I talking right now, that's moving like at 5 miles per hour. So you can see each image. But when you do something like EMDR, those images are moving a lot faster. And so your subconscious is processing things on a quicker level, so quick that you can't talk about it with the therapist. So you're sort of like doing this fast, deep processing of like really like heavy things that you've been through.
Hey guys, we are super excited to announce the launch of something new. We will be launching something called a community on a platform called School. That's SKOOL. It's similar to a Patreon, but better. It's a platform for learning and, well, community. Basically, it will give you access to exclusive content from both Holly and I. Holly is a certified holistic health coach, and she is also a certified embodiment coach. I have a degree in kinesiology and received a certification in personal training. I also am an advancing student in mediumship development and have been channeling spirit for as long as I can remember. Through our own experience and journeys, as well as our knowledge gained through education, we will be curating content to specifically aid in your journeys back home to self. This will include monthly guided meditations, guided embodiment practices, pick-a-card readings, energy healing, guided workouts, and healthy recipes. It will also include important teachings to help you become the most embodied version of yourself. Some topics will include how to connect with your intuition, how to tap into the psychic within you, how to heal your inner child, how to face and understand your ego, how to heal your relationship with your body and food, and more. This platform will also allow for conversation and connection with others who are also part of the community, giving you the opportunity to potentially meet other like-minded individuals who are also on the path of becoming the best versions of themselves. This path is not easy and at times can be isolating. We are not supposed to do this alone. Community is so healing and so important, so we hope this will provide support for you regardless of where you might be on your journey. It's only $22.22 a month, where you will have unlimited access to all of the content as well as the new content rolled out monthly. It will also give you a $10 discount on our monthly healing circles. Holly and I both struggled with self-image, self-confidence, knowing our self-worth, and knowing what it means to truly love ourselves the majority of our lives. The truth is that we are not taught how to properly love ourselves in this day and age, and we are on a mission to make change. We owe it to the future generations to come. We believe that it is important to love your mind, body, and spirit cohesively in order to truly step into the highest, most authentic version of yourself. We hope to see you there, honey.
And I've been through a lot of the EMDR therapy myself. That's how I kind of have the kind of lived, felt experience around it.
Mm-hmm.
But somatic therapy, which I've been trained in, and I call it somatic coaching because I'm not a licensed therapist.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very, I mean, it's, for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing. And what we do is we coach the person to feel into their body. Like, let's say you're upset right now. You had an argument with a good friend, and I can ask you to close your eyes, start taking deep breaths, and I can ask you where in your body that upsetness is most felt. And then the person kind of like feels their body, and it's almost always like somewhere between the stomach and the throat.
Mm-hmm.
Usually upper stomach or chest. And once they kind of pinpoint that, then I have them focus deep into the very center of that area that's really kind of like physically manifesting whatever feeling or emotion or experience they're kind of really resonating in. And there's many different senses. There's there's sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. But there's also ways of describing things. Like, some people are really good at imagining like fictional storylines, while some people are really good at being very factual and noticing all the details of what they see. Some people resonate more with colors, and some people like physical texturization and description. So no one person is the same on how I get them to go into how their body's feeling around their mind's manifestation of something in their body. But when I find the way that works best for them, I have them go into it, and inevitably they'll start somewhere usually calm, like they'll feel peaceful. And then within a minute or so, something will start coming to them, and it will not be peaceful. It will be probably the one thing that they need to work on the most. And it doesn't always come as a clear story, but it can come as a feeling or a sensation. And so we'll feel into that. And when I just let people go with it, they go back and forth between a calm state and a state that's not as calm. And the state that's not as calm is when they're processing what they're working on. And then their nervous system will bring them back to a calm state to kind of like gather themselves again, and then back into this processing state. I'll incorporate breath with this whole technique. And sometimes, I'll incorporate, I don't know if you can't see my knees, but just imagine my hands are on top of my knees. And so you kind of tap an alternating knee rhythm. And that's kind of a form of EMDR, really, which yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's kind of like somatic coaching or somatic therapy is, it's like creating a bridge between the mind and the body. And I kind of got off on a little rabbit hole tangent there, but
well, it's so interesting because I really do that too through my embodiment practices. Like I became a certified embodiment coach through the Highest Self Institute. And that's what we do too. It's like, okay, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling upset, what's a current problem that you're currently facing in your life right now? What's been weighing heavy on your heart, on your mind? Then bringing that forward and then having them go into, okay, when's the first time you remember feeling this way? Not needing to get caught up in the story, not needing to know the whole background, just when's the first time you remember feeling this way? And typically it's a younger memory, a younger part of like, whatever it may be. And then when they have that, what are the feelings? What are the emotions that are coming up when you're tuning into this memory, when you're tuning into weighing heavy on your heart? Okay, where are you feeling that in your body? And then having them identify where they're feeling it in their body. Like you said, it's normally like lower stomach up into like the throat area, sometimes really heaviness on the shoulders, tightness in the head, like not in the throat. Really having them bring all of their awareness to that. And then having them identify, okay, what does this feel like in your body? Is there a texture, a shape, a color that's coming to mind? And really creating, like seeing an object like that's been living in your body. Because like, again, our bodies are always trying to communicate with us. Our emotions live within our bodies. So it's like having them really bring all of their awareness to that and really identify what this is and ask it, what message do you have for me? What are you trying to communicate with me? Why are you here? And normally it's a form of protection. It's like protecting you from getting hurt again or whatever it may be. And the embodiment comes in from, okay, we're going to shake this out, or we're going to tap on it, and setting a timer for 60 to 90 seconds and allowing them to express what that feels like in their body physically, like through their body. So shaking their body, shaking their arms, screaming into a pillow, punching pillows, tapping on that area to like help that energy move through the body, like, because it just needs to be felt. So it sounds like very similar kind of things of the embodiment somatic, like really this emphasis on needing to get back in the body to release through the body, because that's where so much healing happens. So I love that you're incorporating that. That's definitely, I feel like, gaining more and more traction. I feel like more and more people are really realizing we have to heal through the body. We have to feel through the body. And like really embodiment is this big word that's been coming up. And becoming an embodiment coach, you do embodied healing. It's like this emphasis on needing to get back in the body, because so many of us are energetically living in our minds. And we can get really stuck in our minds. And that's where anxiety and depression and mental illness comes in. And it's like dropping out of the mind back into the body and feeling your way through life, feeling your way through what you need to feel instead of trying to think your way through it. So I love that. Yeah, I feel like we're very similar in that aspect of like similar work that we're doing with the people that are coming into our lives that feel like attracted to the work that we do. Yeah, it's so needed. It's so needed. Yeah.
Maybe I can tell you a little bit of how I transition from that when I'm working with someone.
Yeah.
So after that is when we're both really clear. Like if this is a private one-on-one, we're both really clear on like where their body's holding. The emotions that seem to be associated with that. And they're also in a very vulnerable space where they feel safe with me. And so I invite that to stay as present as possible. Because, sometimes when someone kind of goes back out to the rest of the world, they'll sort of like kind of push it back down. So they've got their protection on. So we'll keep it really close to the surface. And if there's time, they'll transition to the treatment table. And that's when I'll incorporate breath, sound healing, and body work. And we kind of know like where the centralized physical manifestation of what they're working on is in their body at this point. But there's nonlinear sections of the body that also seem to have like the key to unlocking other parts of what they're holding. So that's when my intuition pops in. And it's taken me a really long time to feel like the permission from myself to follow the intuition that comes up in those moments, because
to trust yourself.
Yeah, when it's a conversation like this and you say something, my intuition says like something, and it's like, oh, let's go in this direction in this conversation. And that's easier for me to follow. But when it's physical or musical, and I'm like, for example, holding someone's shoulder, and then I get this really strong feeling to move from their shoulder to their right elbow when they haven't complained about any physical ailment there. And to shake their elbow in a certain way and pull on their right thumb with a certain amount of pressure. Like, logically, if I was, out there on the street, sidewalk, talking to a bunch of people and saying out loud what my intuitive thoughts are asking me to do, people might think I was kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
But like, hands down, a session where I follow those intuitive directives,
Yes,
compared to one where I deny them and follow what I was taught,
yeah,
those two sessions are completely different. And the person that was participating with me in the session where I was fully intuitive, way better, way more results.
yes. And that's where I feel like it comes in of really releasing judgment for yourself and really trusting yourself, which I feel like so many of us are on the journey of really learning to trust ourselves. I know I'm really learning trust myself, trust my intuition, trust what I feel, even if it looks crazy, even if it sounds crazy, even if it doesn't make sense, trust it and release that judgment, because your intuition, it never lies. It never lies. So even if it doesn't make logical sense, it's like, again, getting back out of the mind and following that and really trusting yourself, because now you have evidence that it does. It's like those sessions, they're much better when you follow your intuition. So it's like, always try, your intuition is your guiding light, and really listening to that and releasing that judgment for yourself and what it looks like to the outside world or to other people. And it's like following that, because it's always leading you in the right direction. It always is. So it's that self-trust, which comes along with the healing journey of like coming home to self, of really knowing the voice of your intuition and trusting the voice of your intuition. So it gets louder and louder as you continue to like love and appreciate and see yourself,
Yes.
Yeah. I love that for you. Yeah, that's huge. I feel like we're both on the journey too of really trusting and listening to the intuition, because that's where the most healing can happen. It really is. Yeah.
And in many ways, when you think about, so I went through a lot of my life asking for other people to give me my answer to what I needed to do.
Yes.
Looking for external direction. And as I got older and wiser, and my mentors and role models started changing, they stopped giving me the answers. And repeatedly, some of the responses I would get would be something like, or how about this? In a men's group I was in a long time ago, I asked some of the elders, which were the older men that had formed the group before I was part of it. I asked them some questions like, what should I do about this? What should I do about that? And how do I make someone change? Like when they're really upsetting me, or, because I keep asking them to do something differently, but they won't listen to me, or they won't stop doing it that way. And they were just like, the only way you can really do that is to be a role model for them. And
lead by example.
Yeah. And so like when we're working with people, even if we don't say it out loud, if we're not following our intuition, they can feel it energetically. The way that I feel to people I work with when I'm following my intuition, it feels like there's this flow, this like energetic river around us, and I'm going with it. And so that creates this role modeled feeling that I reinforce to them, like, when you're ready to follow your own intuition in this way, this is what it's like. And I'm energetically being a role model in that way, as opposed to being a role model with my clients where I'm like, you look on the wall, I've got a poster of XYZ from step 1 to step 10 that I follow chronologically in order to help you. Because that, like, just saying that out loud, it feels so different, but that's so how our Western medical system operates in most cases, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think too, you touched on something too, where like you constantly asking for other people, what should I do? What should I do? What is right? What should I do in this situation? I feel so many of us, myself included, I've done this before too, are constantly asking other people, outside people, what's the right thing? What do we do? All of the answers lie within you. Like they all lie within you. Of course, you can get support from other people, hear other people's perspectives, but ultimately, you know the answer for yourself. No one else can give you the answer for what you need to do with yourself. And that's where, like, really coming home to yourself, listening to your intuition, what feels right for you, not what other people are telling you what to do, what feels right for you. Because again, you hold all of the answers within. But so often we're looking outside of ourselves for that external validation, or just looking for things outside of ourselves, when really like turning that attention inward and really sitting with yourself and really getting curious. Okay, what feels good for me to move forward, and really following that, because really like all of our answers lie from within, and we give our power away by constantly asking other people, what should we do? How do we move through this? You hold the power, you hold the answers for yourself. No one else can give you the right answers for yourself. So that's what made me think of that when you said that too, which is a journey. It's a journey of learning how to trust yourself, trust your intuition, stop asking others what to do, what feels right for you. I'm just now gotten to that place of really trusting myself, following what feels true for me, even if other people don't agree. That's okay. I agree. I see myself. I know the direction I'm meant to go, and I'm connected with my intuition, even if it doesn't always make sense. That's okay. And really learning how to trust myself and trust the answers that I get from within.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like you've gotten to that place with yourself of really trusting yourself with all of that?
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I know certainly that I'm better than I was at it. And when it comes
growth.
Yeah, when it comes to working with someone else, yes, hands down, I'm getting masterful at following my intuition and what feels right for me as a form of support for them. But interestingly enough, like when it's for myself, I'm not as good as following my truth and my intuition as completely as I do when I'm supporting someone else. And so that's where I'm still growing, and you know, I don't know what the saying is, but I've often been reminded that it's much easier to preach than it is to practice. And like, people come to me because I know how to help them get past an obstacle they're facing. That doesn't mean that I'm not facing the same obstacle myself still, you know? And you know, interestingly, on that same topic, I'm curious if you've experienced this too. Probably have. Over the past decade, every time I grow through something and I come out on the other side with more knowledge and wisdom and insight on how to access that wisdom and embody it and integrate it so that I can not just know it, but really feel it. That's when someone new comes to see me.
Right. Yeah.
Needing that same lesson. And I'm like, and I think to the universe, I think, really, could you give me like a couple more weeks to really integrate all this? Because like I just got it, and now this person's coming to me and like saying, will you give me feedback on this? And I'm like, well, okay, but then really, do I really need to intellectualize it for 2 weeks, or should I just find a way to embody it,
We're interrupting this episode to share something close to our hearts, our virtual healing circles. We have been loving them so much and meeting so many of you incredible people through them. Brittany and I are passionate about bringing people together to support one another and heal in community. We felt alone on our paths for so long, and coming together in community has been instrumental to our growth, and we've both seen the importance in it. We aren't meant to do this alone. In unity and vulnerability, we find strength, courage, and support each other on our paths back to ourselves. Our monthly virtual seminars blend discussions, workshops, and practices to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Whether seeking guidance, healing, or a listening ear, our gatherings offer a safe, inclusive space for people to connect, heal, and grow. Join us on this journey of healing in community. Together we can heal, grow, and thrive. Register for the next circle using the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there. Yeah, and I think that's also where authenticity comes in, where it's like, for me, even with the women that come in my life and the men that are starting to come into my life that I support, it's like, I am no better than you at all. Like I'm moving through the same things that you're moving through. I may have already moved through some of these things, and I can share what has worked for me and help you move through them because I know how to get to the other side. But I learn from my clients just as much as they've learned from me, and that authenticity of, showing up, being human, saying I'm still, working through these things. This is what's worked for me, and I feel it works. So let's see how this works in your life, and just keeping that open. Like, I don't put myself as like I need to be perfect or have all the answer. I know you don't either, but like I don't feel like I need to be perfect in order or like have it all figured out to support people. It's like I'm just enough where I have the wisdom and the information and the knowledge to share to help them along their path, but I'm learning too. And I'm very open with my clients of I'm always learning. I'm always open to new information, new way of healing, like all of that. So I feel like just the authenticity and the vulnerability, it's like, it resonates with people, and that's, we're all human trying to like make our way through. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And there's this thing that like, I don't know, maybe it's just because of what's going on politically, but there's this, you were saying a minute ago about, doing what feels right for you, regardless of whether or not someone else agrees with that. And even before social media existed, it's like, it's crazy to even say that, because I think in 20 years or maybe 40 years, people are going to stop saying that. But I grew up without social media, and I had a level of filtering myself before social media, because I had a fear that if I was my true self in front of other people, that they might not agree with it, and then they might react to that in a way where there was disapproval, judgment, and shaming. And I experienced that as a young kid because I was bullied a lot. I was always like a really small, one of the smallest kids in my classes. So I think early on I developed this level of protection where I didn't want to be vulnerable to other people's opinions or disapproval of me. So I started censoring myself, and that was before social media. And I remember the first time what was the name of that website? MySpace. I had friends that were so into it, and there was a feature like Facebook where someone could say like, I feel this way about this thing, and then people could reply, And I remember, oh, I don't agree with that. So I replied, and then all of a sudden, all these people jumped on me. Yeah. Like I was this horrible person for disagreeing with this other person. And it went on for days, and it just stressed me out so much. And this was before Facebook. And that experience, honestly, it traumatized me. I pulled back. I pulled back from social media before it even really took off. And
yeah, because even if you spoke your truth and then you got reprimanded for it, Yeah. So that's like, oh, it's actually not safe for me to express my opinion.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I can see how that would be traumatizing. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you talk about as a as a person that supports others, holding space in a way where I stay true to myself, regardless of whether or not I'm approved of, I think that's where my biggest growth is. I've grown so much, and I have so much further to go. I have so much further to grow in that way. And I feel like the more I actually do that, the better my life gets.
The more like you can show up more authentically and true to yourself. Yeah. And of course, like when you're being your true authentic self, you're going to attract in all these beautiful things because you're being like honest and real.
And beautiful people like you.
Yes, yeah, you attract in, we're like finding each other because I didn't feel safe being my true authentic self either. I put myself in a box. I was really quiet growing up. So like I never really had my voice. And now that I have my voice and I'm speaking my truth, I'm attracting in people that are also being authentic and doing the work, doing the inner work to be able to show up more authentically because it's not easy to get to this place. It takes work, it takes healing, it takes rewiring your mind and feeling your emotions and letting go. It's the healing, like self-love journey, I always say, to be able to like come home to self, to be your true authentic self. Because when you are, like everything falls into place. Like when you do your self-love right, when you can show up authentically, speak your truth, know who you are, you start attracting in that because like what you put out is what you get back. So yeah, it's like, it's such a beautiful thing, but it is hard to get to that place of not caring what other people think, but not in the negative way of, okay, no, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. It's like, no, it's like I have cared so much about what people have thought of me growing up. It's like now I'm at a place where I know who I am, I love who I am, and I cannot let the opinions of others control me anymore. And if they don't agree with me, that's okay. And like a loving way of not caring what people think. You know what I mean? And I feel like for you, like you're getting to that space too, it feels like.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
I think about a year ago, until then, I was using the same words that you were using, which is not caring about what other people think. And I said that to somebody, and she said to me, well, you're always going to care what people think.
Yeah.
But it's more about not letting that affect who you show yourself as.
Yes.
And the actions you take.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, I'm just not letting other people's opinions influence me as much. But I still care. And to pretend that their opinions don't affect me, it still hurts, when someone criticizes my actions or my beliefs or my opinions. But so there's this, I wrote a blog post about this like 10 years ago. And when I wrote the blog post, I thought, oh, I totally embody all this. But no, now I'm just starting to embody what I wrote 10 years ago. But the blog post, which is like, it's really interesting how you can write something that you don't fully understand yet, but it makes so much sense, and I guess that's preaching and before you can practice. But regardless, it was about mediocrity, like living life in a mediocre experience. And so I'll explain it. I got really good at becoming a chameleon in life, adapting to the people around me.
Right.
And showing a version of myself that I knew those people would like.
Right.
And at some point, I was proud of that because it was a skill that I, took many decades to practice and to learn. But then all of a sudden, I think around the time I wrote the blog post, I was just like, who are these people I'm surrounded by? I don't actually enjoy hanging out with them. It felt more superficial. And I found myself giving more than I was getting in the relationships. And I started to understand the notion of, well, when you show up in a way that diminishes who you truly are in order to be approved of by everyone around you, it does increase your chances of approval by more people, but it diminishes your chances of people loving you.
Yeah, for who you really are.
Like people just craving you, and equal amounts of people disliking you.
Right.
And I thought it would feel better to live life just to be thought of as okay by everyone.
Yeah. And but even by doing that, by being okay by everyone, look at who you're diminishing. Like you're diminishing yourself, your gifts, your talents, who you truly authentically are. Like, because so many of us, I feel, wear masks and just try and fit into the outside. But like everyone, it's a human need. We want to fit in. We want to fit in. So we like shape shift and
Yeah.
become our people to fit in. But you're doing that at your own expense. Because if you were just to be your true authentic self, you would attract in the people that really see you. It's different than, you know what I mean by like, you can be surrounded by 100 people and have all of their approval, but not feel seen. And that's a lonely place.
Yes.
We're surrounded by 2 or 3 people where you are safe to be your true authentic self and they really see you. That is the most fulfilling relationships. You know, it's like to really be seen and heard and loved and accepted for who you are, exactly as who you are, like, and let your gifts shine. There's so much freedom in that, you know? So it's like, but I totally resonate with what you're saying. And I think a lot of people will resonate with that of like wanting to fit in. So just becoming this like chameleon, just fitting into where the different groups that you're in for that approval. But again, it's like you're really diminishing your own light. You're dimming your own light by doing that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think an interesting story where I was doing a 2-day music festival like a really long time ago. I was DJing, and the first day of the music festival, the promoter asked if I could wear like an outfit, and this was back before cultural misappropriation was a thing.
Mhm.
And so I had a wig on, an afro wig, and kind of like a disco outfit. And I just really did an amazing job. Everybody was dancing, like there was hundreds of people just jumping up and down, screaming like, ah,
Yeah.
and it was so fun. And the next day I did a set on a different stage, and that time I didn't wear a wig or an outfit. I just was myself.
Mhm.
And most of the same people from the previous day were there. And it was a totally different set because this set was like tropical house music. And the day before it was like new disco, which is like new beats on top of old disco songs to make them like more heavy hitting and like just fun, easier to dance to. Because sometimes old school 1970s recordings aren't as good as so. But that was the first day. And the second day was like a tropical house vibe, which, you know, back in the 90s was typically like you'd find a lot more white dudes DJing a tropical house DJ dance party than you would like a disco funk party. And so I was unknowingly playing into these stereotypes with the outfits that I wore. And the second day, the people that praised the DJ set from the tropical house were totally different people. And some folks came up to me from the previous day and they were like, yeah, you know, I've never really listened to tropical house, but I liked your vibe. But I got to say, like yesterday, there was this guy, he freaking killed it. He was my favorite DJ. And they described like the way I looked, but they said I was a black guy. And because of my fro wig that I had been wearing.
Oh,
And I'm like, oh, that was me. There was like this one dude, he was in like a group of like 7 people and they were all with him. And I'm like, oh, that was me. I DJ'd that. I had an outfit on, a costume. I had glasses, and maybe I had a dark tan or something because I definitely don't look black
yeah.
at the time. And he's like, no way, that wasn't you, you know. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it was. I had an outfit on. I had a wig, and he's like, no, there's no like, you can't have that kind of rhythm. But I appreciate that you got the house music. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And
Yeah.
that was in the 90s. Like these
Interesting.
days, I probably would have got booed off the stage for having a wig on, but it reminded me recently when I was remembering that like, even when you're yourself, there's going to be people that don't approve, or they don't see you in the same way that they would if you look differently. And I think one of the ways that I've had a hard time being myself is just expressing myself in a way that feels true, regardless of how other people think I should express myself based on how they perceive me without even knowing me. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I feel like too, it's like, again, like the journey of really coming home to self, to be confident, to be able to express yourself in that way, like in a way that feels authentic to you and not letting other people's opinions get in the way of that. That is like a form of confidence that comes with really coming home to self, being okay with, okay, not everyone's going to resonate, and that's okay because I know who I am. I love who I am, and I'm going to show up as this version of me because I'm going to stay true to myself. I'm not going to dim my light, water myself down anymore. I know who I am, so I'm going to show up as that version of me.
Mhm.
And the right people will resonate, and the other people,
Yeah.
that's okay if they don't. So there's so much freedom in showing up as your true authentic self, and really, again, not caring what people think, but not letting the opinions of others dictate how you're going to live your life and show up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. We are coming up on time. So is there anything else, anything that we missed that you want to share?
Gosh. Yeah, maybe one thing that I forgot to mention was I have this deep hope that touch becomes something that everyone feels free to do, including licensed talk therapists and psychologists.
Yeah.
I think back in the day, maybe some men took advantage of the trust and level of safety that their clients gave them
Yeah.
and were inappropriate,
Right.
but it caused this fear in people that don't consider themselves body workers to touch their clients. And if everybody just could have like this level of trust where they're not going to sue the person to take advantage of the situation, and they're just going to trust that they're going to be good. And if everybody that was supporting other people could just touch when it feels appropriate, when their intuition says this person needs a hand on the shoulder, or whatever that touch is, so many more people would heal so much faster. And
Yeah.
And this separation between mind and body in our Western medical system is such a disservice to the sickness and lack of disease that's going on in not just in our country, but all over the world. And the Western values and ideals that support the separation of mind and body. It's it's kind of like moving us in the wrong direction. And it makes me happy that we're getting more therapists that call themselves somatic therapists because they're starting to bridge that gap.
Right.
But I've worked with some of them and they're still afraid to touch. In fact, I was at a medicine ceremony, I don't know, 6 months ago. And there was a psychotherapist there who had practiced that she had run for 40 years with 6 other therapists. A bustling practice that had been written up about in the newspaper, it had been featured on news segments. When I was working on somebody and they started unwinding and shaking, afterwards she said to me, like, what was that? What was happening? Were you hurting them? I said, no, that's them letting go of like stuck energy, stuck tension in their body. You've never seen that in the 40 years of practicing psychotherapy?
Yeah. Wow.
And she looked at me and she said, no. I said, what about your colleagues? She said, no, they would all say the same thing. And I'm like,
Oh, she was there for a reason, though. She saw
yeah,
that for a reason. We need to like spread that
yeah,
to the psychiatrist, to the psychologists. That she needed to see that.
yeah. And if they didn't feel so afraid to touch people, they too could help people release in that way. You see what I'm
Get in their bodies. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the somatic part of it or the embodiment part of it, where you're coaching the people to feel into their body, that's one thing. But then there's this moment where my intuition says, oh, they need touch now. And if people can't give themselves permission to go there with their clients, if they're not sending them to someone that can, then the person is just walking around with just this button on them that says, please press me. I need human touch right now.
Yeah.
But everybody's so afraid to touch sometimes that it's just like, then that person, they'll brush against the person that they don't know is so sensitive. And just that touch they could start seizing on the sidewalk because they just needed one person to touch them. You know what I mean?
I was saying, my mom and I talked about this too. Like, people need just hugs. Like, we
Yes.
need getting more hugs, more love. Like, specifically, with COVID and isolation and all of that kind of stuff, it's like hugging is so healing. Like, really just when have you like really hugged another person and really held them tight? And it wasn't just a superficial, oh, hey, how are you? Like, actual hugging, human to human, just loving one another. Like, hugs can truly are healing, and that kind of sounds woo woo, spiritual, whatever. But I've really been feeling the power of, oh my gosh, like, we need more hugs in this world. People need to be hugged. Like, we are so lonely and so disconnected now more than ever. Like, we need that loving touch, that respectful touch, loving hugs. Like, there's so much healing that can be done with that. Yeah. I see the power in it too. I totally do. Yeah.
Yeah, and something about COVID quarantine really made people afraid to touch.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And it's like getting out of this fear-based thinking. We need to get out of the fear-based thinking. And it's valid, the fear is valid, but it's like moving through that now, and we're safe and you're safe, and it's safe to be with other people. It's safe to be in community, to love one another, to touch one another, to like hold one another as you heal. Yeah, there's so much power in touch, self-touch, like loving your own body, touching your own body, getting back in your own body, and then also being able to, hold and love on someone else too. Yeah.
That's a good point with self-touch because
Yeah.
I myself avoided touching my stomach most of my life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as my belly got bigger,
Mhm.
it was a no-go zone. I'd massage my shoulders and my arms, but my
Mhm.
belly is just like this, no-fly zone that's just lonely. And it's like, why do you abandon me, And
Yeah,
the
that's
more,
embodiment too. It's like
yeah,
embodiment. You are your first client. Like, us learning these things too. It's like I really had to learn how to like lovingly touch my body, just like my arms. Like, I had an eating disorder, and like really, really hard on my body image, and like really loving my arms, loving my legs, loving my stomach, like just like lovingly touching it. It's like learning how to lovingly touch your own body first to get comfortable with that in a like respectful, loving, kind way too. We need people also getting like more in tune with themselves and their own bodies. And then from just a loving place, and then also extending that same love in a loving way, by hugging, or, if you're a healer and needing to touch to help release tension and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, the power of like self-touch, self-love is huge too, about like getting back in your body and loving your body. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be powerful for you too as you go on and, yeah, like touch your stomach and all of that. Yeah.
hmm yeah.
Beautiful.
Maybe let's just end with love. How about that?
Yes,
Oh,
yes. Self-love, love for yourself first, and then when you love yourself fully and completely, you can extend that love to other people. I
well,
really think it starts with you first,
yeah. I think you can extend that love even before you fully self-love yourself.
Yes. Yeah, I agree, but I feel that it's deeper. It's real. Like, you can 100%, 100%. But I feel it's like you know how there's layers to things. There's
Mhm.
layers to wisdom. There's layers to everything. So it's a deeper layer of love when you fully love yourself. You can
Yeah.
fully love and see someone else, but it's like a deeper, deeper layer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just whatever layer we're on,
Hmm.
giving ourselves permission to extend that layer of love to everyone around us.
Yes.
Um, it's so different than fearing other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. That was a beautiful, beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for everything that you shared. So we'll have your website, his social media linked in the description box below, just if you want to check out Wayne, his work that he does. If you're in San Francisco, you want to book an online, or do you offer online services too, or is it all in person?
I offer lots of things. For
Okay.
people that are far away from where I'm physically located, I do virtual somatic coaching, which is, probably similar to your embodiment stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
But I do out calls and travel sometimes.
Okay, perfect. Yes, well, we'll have all of that in the description box below. And yeah, we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you so much, Wayne.
Yeah, thank you.